It is
It
GOAT.
is good.
We have the GOAT of MMA, the UFC heavyweight champion, Mr. Jon Jones, UFC 309 on November 16th at the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden. He will defend the belt against Stipe Miocic. John, 16 years and it never gets old, right?
Yes, sir. You and I have been doing this for a very long time, Kevin. It's always a pleasure to work with you. One of the best.
Love always talking to you as well, John. You know, and I think let's start here. I think this is a really interesting, there's kind of a rich irony here in this fight. New York adopted the unified rules. So 12 to 6 elbows will be allowed at UFC 309 in New York as they were at Edmonton last week. Your only career loss on the record was because of a 12 to 6 elbow against Matt Hamill. So what impact does it have, and how does it make you feel to know now that that elbow you threw against Matt Hamill would be legal right now?
Yeah, it just makes me wish that disqualification was overturned. That's the biggest feeling that I have once I learned that rule is no more. On the other hand, I accept the move more than ever now, and I've been training extensively on different 12 to 6 elbow attacks. It's funny because it's been such a big no-no move, and so you train yourself not to go there, and now to be able to use that strike. I mean, it's a very devastating strike, and it just opens up so many more options, both on the feet and in the top position. And I'm excited to hopefully be one of the first UFC athletes to legally display it at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, you just think of your Cyril Gane fight, UFC 285. You had him against the cage there. Now you went for the choke right away, but I mean, obviously the 12 to 6 elbow from the position that you had with him back up against the cage would have been an unbelievable move.
It would have been nice in that position. Having control would be more important. But in this next fight, I feel like I'll be putting myself in some really great positions to land the technique, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I think I know you pretty well and kind of what makes you tick. And, a lot of people are questioning why is Stipe getting this fight, because he hasn't won a fight in so long and he hasn't fought in quite a long time. Is it because he is widely considered to be the greatest heavyweight of all time? Is that sort of in your thinking when you say, hey, Stipe is the guy I want to fight, that the reputation he has within the division that you now compete in?
Yeah, I feel that it's unfortunate that we live in a world where one bad performance discredits a person so much. Stipe has beat everyone. I mean, Junior Dos Santos, Francis Ngannou, Daniel Cormier, some of the biggest names, many champions he's defeated. And I feel like I'm wise enough to know that one bad night doesn't make a man or break a man. And Stipe is every bit of worthy as my opponent. It's not easy winning championships back to back, especially in the heavyweight division. And what he's done is truly special. And I just want to give the man his opportunity. I know fighting me for a lot of athletes is a really big deal. And if anyone deserves to be in there with me, it's Stipe Miocic.
Let me just say this, because I want to be clear, at least on my position on this. I have been critical of the fight, not because Stipe got beaten by Francis, but because he hasn't fought for so long, right? That is the big issue here, right? Tom Aspinall has been fighting and been active, and Stipe has not. That's the only issue. I think, just like everybody agrees that you're the greatest fighter of all time, even though you haven't fought, in 2 years or a year and a half, people also think he's the greatest heavyweight. He just hasn't been active. And I think that's the argument people make.
I hear you. But what it shows me is our boss's loyalty to his athletes. I mean, Stipe Miocic versus Francis back in the day, I mean, it had the whole world excited of like, how would this firefighter, right, what people like to call him, how would this 240-pound athlete go up a guy like Francis, this larger than life character, and they gave us a great, a little saga or whatnot, you want to call it. Dana White doesn't forget that, I believe guys like Stipe and we helped take the UFC to a new level. And just because we've been on for a while doesn't mean we're not great athletes, and we don't have strong fan bases. We don't have MMA historians who, I shouldn't call it historians, but longtime MMA fans who always question what would happen with Jon and Stipe. I'm 37 years old, and I am not a person to be counted out. And at 42, I don't believe Stipe is a person to be counted out. Styles makes matchups, and for the real long-term MMA fans who grew up watching both Stipe and I compete, I think this fight is always going to be intriguing to them.
He obviously has had an unbelievable, beat Fabricio Verdum. He's beaten DC twice. He beat Francis Ngannou. So nobody can argue with his record. Given where he's at now, how do you game plan for a guy that hasn't been active, right? He's only fought once each year from, going back the last 4 or 5 years, and then he hasn't fought at all since 2021. How do you game plan for a guy like that when you don't have recent film of what he does?
Well, his inactivity, I try not to pay much attention to that. I mean, I took off 3 years and I came back and I beat one of the most mystical creatures that the UFC has seen in a while in Cyril Gane. I mean, no one could stop him. And myself, as a much older fighter, I came back and destroyed him. I'm also a big fan of our military, and a lot of these instructors are in their late 40s. And every year, these young recruits come around, and these men who are much older than them run laps around these boys. So I'm not naive enough to believe that age plays that huge of a factor.
Okay.
There's a lot of 20-year-olds that I can whoop their ass right now.
Yes.
So, yeah. So age isn't a really big thing. The way that I deal with the fact that Stipe doesn't have a lot of, I guess, recent footage is I go back and I watch him from when he was in his absolute prime. I watch him from his 20s, and then I watch him in his mid-20s, and his 30s, and his 40s. And that's the way I do it. I just look at the data that's presented to me, and I see the progression in some aspects, and I see the degression in some aspects, and I come up with what I think the formula to winning will be. And that's the plan.
Tom Aspinall's the guy that people want to see you fight, right? So here's the question. You're fighting Stipe Miocic, and I know you're focused on that fight. If you defeat him, as you're a 6-1 favorite to win the fight, if you defeat him, will you defend your belt against Aspinall, who has the interim title?
More than likely not. More than likely not. I feel like Tom Aspinall is, I don't want to say nobody, but he just hasn't proven anything. He hasn't done anything. And I understand that. I mean, he won his belt against Sergey. Sergey just got slaughtered by someone else. So it's just like, I'm not here to gamble someone else making a name off of me. I'm here to compete against the guys where when we look back, 10 years from now, it'd be like Jon Jones fought this guy and that guy and this legend and this champion and this champion. If there were to be a fight of a guy that's still on our UFC roster that would be not only financially worth it, but legacy worth it, it would be Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira and I, we both 37.
Light heavyweight champ.
Yeah, we're both 37 years old. Right now, I weigh about 235. I'm an incredibly light heavyweight. I think Pereira walks around at 240. And I think that fight would go much farther on my legacy than a young man who's cool today and maybe gone tomorrow. I remember a time when the whole world thought Johnny Walker was going to be the guy to beat me. And no disrespect for Johnny Walker, but I mean, we all have seen the way his career has played out. I've just been here too long to get all excited about someone who's hot today. I'm here for legacy. I've been gambling for way too long to just take random fights.
Well, I'm part of the whole world, and I did not think Johnny Walker was going to beat you, but we'll go there. I know we're running short of time, so I want to get 2 more questions into you, Jon. First of all, I think that you've had a number of great accomplishments in your career, right? It's been unbelievable. And in your, I would say, technically undefeated, right? Everybody would agree with that. The the longevity is what gets me, right? I think that's your greatest, not that streak after you won the title with Shogun going through Rampage and all those guys, but I think the longevity. What do you attribute that longevity to, given the fact that you haven't always been the cleanest liver, right? And you haven't taken care of your body the way other people have. And yet for, you said 16 years, right? Look at how you've been on top for so long. What do you attribute that to?
Beer and donuts, man, honestly. No, I'm teasing, Kev.
That's me.
That's funny. I thought we were late when I say that. I'm teasing. Kevin, everyone's not going to want to hear this answer, but I feel like the spirit that lives inside of me, and the faithfulness that lives inside of me keeps me young. Age is just a number, and I feel like, the higher power that gives me strength, he tells me when I'm hurt. He tells me when I'm weak. And as of right now, he hasn't said any of those things to me. I believe I have a lot more fight inside of me. And that's what keeps me young. For the longest time, I didn't even have a recovery protocol. Thank God I met Gary Brecker recently, who's been teaching me a lot of things about.
Oh, you're with Gary Brecker?
Yeah, Gary's been helping me out so much with just having a way of taking care of myself. I would get massages like once a week. And now I really kind of pamper myself at night before going to bed. And I feel like that's added even more longevity to my career if I so choose. But I mean, the most real answer I could think to give you is the spiritual that's inside of me. It gives me great strength.
Let's give me a quick answer on this, because this is the last question. I know that you've heard Dana for the last 6 or 8 months. Jon Jones is the greatest pound-for-pound fighter in the world. I think, you say to Dana, where are you going for dinner tonight? Well, I don't know, but Jon Jones is the greatest pound-for-pound fighter in the world. And you probably heard Dana and I going at it back and forth at the Contender Series, when my only argument was Jon hasn't fought in 18 months, and so he can't be pound-for-pound if you're not active. I just want to give you, why does being #1 pound for pound mean so much to you? Because I saw you when Dana has said that, you have tweeted and gone on social media and said that. Why does that mean so much to you?
It's just an honor. That's all. It's just a huge honor to even be considered at 37 years old, one of the most well-rounded winners in our sport still. It's a huge honor, and I'm just very grateful that my boss, a man who's set front row for every fight, for all of our fights, for him to say, hey, listen, guys, trust me. I know what I'm watching. I know what I'm looking at. And in my opinion, if Jon was the same size as a lot of these other guys, Jon would be in the mix. I think we have a lot of new fans, a lot of younger fans who, our sport can be very, what have you done for me lately? And I think Dana is doing a great job of saying, hey, let's wait a minute. Let's remember what this guy's done.
Right.
And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that he's not allowing the naysayers or some of the fans to just push me to the side, because I have done a tremendous amount of work for this company, and I've done it at a very young age, and I did it at very middle age, and I'm doing it at a late age now, and I'm just grateful to be recognized.
Awesome. That is the GOAT, Mr. Jon Jones, UFC 309 on November 16th. Jon, always good to see you, brother. Appreciate you. See you, man.